Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
One may hope, even with the writers who use hard words, to avoid the breath of the deadly upas tree. One may, by great luck, succeed in hurting the eye of the basilisk. One might even avoid the eyes of Cerberus and Argus, but no person, alive or dead, can escape the look of the rubberer. New York is the rubber city. There are many people, of course, who go their ways, making money without turning to the right or the left. But there is a group of people who are very curious, like the Martians, only with eyes and ways to move around. These very curious people gather quickly, like flies, in a circle around the scene of something unusual. If a worker opens a manhole, if a streetcar runs over a man from North Tarrytown, if a little boy drops an egg on his way home from the store, if a house falls into the subway, if a lady loses a nickel through a hole in her sock, if the police take out a telephone and a racing chart from a reading room, if Senator Depew or Mr. Chuck Connors walks out to take a walk, if any of these things happen, you will see the crazy, unstoppable rush of the rubber group to the spot. How important the event is does not matter. They look with equal interest at a chorus girl or at a man painting a sign. They will make a big circle around a man with a clubfoot just as they will around a broken-down car. They have the love of looking. They are greedy for looking, feasting on the bad things that happen to others. They look and stare with their big eyes like fish at the bait. It would seem that Cupid would find these cold-eyed people too hard to love. But have we not yet to find anyone who cannot love? Yes, beautiful romance came to two of these curious people, and love came into their hearts as they stood around the hurt body of a man who had been run over by a brewery wagon. William Pry was the first one at the spot. He was very good at coming to these events. With a big smile on his face, he stood over the hurt man, listening to his groans as if they were the sweetest music. When the crowd of people became a tight circle, William saw a big commotion in the crowd opposite him. Men were pushed aside like pins by someone moving through them like a fast wind. With elbows, umbrella, hatpin, tongue, and fingernails doing their job, Violet Seymour forced her way through the crowd to the front row. Strong men who had even managed to get a seat on the 5:30 Harlem train moved back like children as she pushed through. Two large lady onlookers who had seen the Duke of Roxburgh get married and often blocked traffic on 23rd Street fell back into the second row with torn shirts when Violet was done with them. William Pry loved her at first sight. The ambulance took away the unconscious man. William and Violet stayed after the crowd left. They were true rubberers. People who leave the scene of an accident with the ambulance do not have real rubber in their necks. The best part is the aftertaste, looking at the spot, staring at the houses opposite, staying there in a dream better than any other. William Pry and Violet Seymour were experts at looking at accidents. They knew how to enjoy every part of it. Soon they looked at each other. Violet had a brown birthmark on her neck as big as a silver coin. William stared at it. William Pry had very bad legs. Violet kept looking at them. They stood like this for a while, each staring at the other. They could not talk, but in the rubber city, it is okay to stare at trees in the parks and at the physical flaws of another person. Finally, with a sigh, they went their own ways. But Cupid had been the driver of the brewery wagon, and the wheel that broke a leg brought two hearts together. The next time the hero and heroine met was in front of a board fence near Broadway. The day had been a boring one. There had been no fights on the street. Children stayed away from the wheels of streetcars. Crippled people and fat men in loose shirts were few. Nobody seemed to want to slip on banana peels or fall down with heart disease. Even the man from Kokomo, Indiana, who says he is a cousin of ex-Mayor Lowe and throws nickels from a cab window, had not shown up. There was nothing to look at, and William Pry was feeling bored. But he saw a big crowd pushing and shoving excitedly in front of a billboard. Running fast towards it, he knocked down an old woman and a child with a bottle of milk and fought his way into the crowd. In the front stood Violet Seymour with one sleeve and two gold teeth missing, a corset steel puncture, and a sprained wrist, but she was happy. She was looking at what was happening. A man was painting on the fence. Eat bricklets, they fill your face. Violet blushed when she saw William Pry. William poked a lady in a black silk coat in the ribs, kicked a boy in the shin, bit an old man on the left ear, and moved closer to Violet. They stood for an hour looking at the man painting the words. Then William couldn't hold back his love anymore. He touched her on the arm. "Come with me," he said. "I know where there is a bootblack without an Adam's apple." She looked up at him shyly, yet with clear love on her face. "And you have saved it for me?" she asked, trembling with the first happy feeling of being loved. Together they hurried to the bootblack stand. They spent an hour there looking at the unusual boy. A window cleaner fell from the 5th floor to the sidewalk beside them. As the ambulance came loudly, William squeezed her hand happily. "For ribs at least and a big break," he whispered quickly. "You're not sorry that you met me, are you, dear?" "Me?" said Violet, squeezing his hand back. "Of course not. I could spend all day looking with you." The best part of the romance happened a few days later. Maybe the reader will remember how excited the city got when Eliza Jane, a black woman, was given a subpoena. The rubber tribe camped on the spot. With his own hands, William Pry placed a board on 2 beer kegs in the street across from Eliza Jane's house. He and Violet sat there for 3 days and nights. Then a detective decided to open the door and give the subpoena. He called for a camera and did it. 2 people with such similar tastes could not stay apart for long. As a policeman drove them away with his stick that evening, they promised to marry. The seeds of love had been well planted and had grown strong and healthy into let's call it a rubber plant. The wedding of William Pry and Violet Seymour was set for June 10th. The big church in the middle of the block was full of flowers. The large group of rubberers loved weddings. They are the sad people in the pews. They make fun of the groom and tease the bride. They come to laugh at your wedding, and if you die, they will come to your funeral and cry over your bad luck. Rubber will stretch. The church was bright. A fancy carpet lay over the asphalt to the sidewalk. Bridesmaids were fixing each other's sashes and talking about the bride's freckles. Coachmen tied white ribbons on their whips and complained about the time between drinks. The minister was thinking about his fee, wondering if it would be enough to buy a new suit for himself and a picture of Laura Jane Libby for his wife. Yes, love was in the air. And outside the church, oh, my friends, crowded the rubberers. They were in two groups, with a fancy carpet and police officers with clubs in between. They crowded like cattle, they fought, they pushed and moved and stepped on each other to see a girl in a white veil get the right to go through a man's pockets while he sleeps. But the time for the wedding came and went, and the bride and groom did not come. And impatience turned into worry, and worry made them search, but they were not found. Then two big policemen went into the angry crowd and pulled out a crushed and trampled person with a wedding ring in its pocket and a shredded and frantic woman pushing her way to the carpet's edge, torn, bruised, and loud. William Pry and Violet Seymour, creatures of habit, had joined the excited crowd, unable to stop their strong desire to watch themselves enter the flower-filled church as bride and groom. Rubber will out.